Welcome back. James Godfrey here with Croit, and we have a bonus video for you today. So one of the things that's pretty cool about our software is that we can import an existing cluster. Customers often ask us, what does that actually look like? And so today I'm going to run through the importation of an existing Ceph cluster. Um, so we support importing existing Ceph clusters no matter how they were deployed. Before we get too far into this, do want to give a disclaimer that croit support is required for this. The cluster state needs to be gathered before starting, so things like init configs, Ceph services, etc. You do not want to be doing this on your own without croit support, especially if you care about your data and it's running in production, etc. So the overall high-level steps that we are going to take to accomplish this is deploy the croit manager and have the networking prepped for PXE-boot to PXE-boot the nodes. We are going to import via the admin key of the existing cluster and the monitor IPs of the existing cluster. Then one by one, we are going to reboot the nodes so that they PXE into the croit image. This should be zero downtime if the existing cluster is appropriately sized and configured. So for example, if you have one MDS server and you're serving CephFS, if you have one MDS server and we need to reboot that, then there will be the downtime of getting it booted into croit and configuring the MDS. If, however, you have multiple MDS, so if you have an active and a standby replay, then there should only be a few seconds delay from a client picking up that the active is no longer available and jumping over to the standby replay. So that's just an example. We need to configure the NICs and the name and reconfigure any services that were running on the nodes previously, so things like MONs, MDSs, etc., which fortunately croit makes very easy. So let's look into what we need to do. So on the screen you see here that I have gathered the cephadm key. This is from a healthy cluster that was deployed with cephadm, but again we can import if it was deployed with ceph-Ansible, cephadm, ceph-deploy, you name it. So we have the key. We also have the MONs listed as well. And we've also confirmed that the Ceph cluster is in a healthy state. Also, in this example, I have two MDSs. I do have a CephFS file system created. And so if I were to have any clients, I do have a standby. Also, I'm not going to go over anything that I've gone over already, but I did want to show that the existing Ceph cluster is on this network right here, 10.0.31.0. So that is the Ceph cluster. We also need to make sure that we have the PXE network, aka the croit management network, so that we can PXE boot into these nodes. So an existing Ceph cluster is probably only going to have the Ceph networks. So there is consideration that needs to be taken to do some prep work and figure out the way that that is actually going to happen. Please contact us. We are happy to help you solve this problem. But basically at a super high level, we need a croit network and we need the Ceph network, just like we would with any other croit deployment. So this is ready to go. And we should be prompted with the option to import. Again, we spell out explicitly if you have an existing cluster and you want to import, that basically we recommend that you contact our support team. So again, we are happy to work with you on that. So I'm going to click import, and on a notepad I already have the information that I need. the admin key and the MONs, import, and this will take just a few seconds. As you see, the GUI has switched to the day 2 menu, so we have all of our options that we would see with a normal croit config. In our status, we see that we have 3 MONs and 6 OSDs in this case. So we now need to get these things booted into the croit image. So I'm going to do some things off screen. We are not able at this point to control the power state because it's not booted into our image yet. So behind the scenes, I am going to reboot the first node. And I also need to make sure that I have the PXE boot order configured in the BIOS, because right now it's booting off of the regular hard drive. So let me do this. Give me just a few moments. All right, you can't see it on your screen, but the post has gone through, and I got the PXE boot, so we can actually see here on the status that we lost one of the MONs and the OSDs, but if we look here in servers, we can see that we have a host that has come in. So I am going to give this a new name. This is the IP address of the croit network that was part of the DHCP pool. And we're not going to see the NICs or disks until it is finished booting, so we need to give this just a few moments. Okay, so it looks like it is running, so it's fully booted. We have the network interfaces. In this case, if we had configured LACP or an active passive bond with multiple NICs, we would create the bond. In this case, I am good to just configure this with the IPs that it was before. So, all right. So that is configured. So the next step is going to be, this was a monitor server, so we want to remove from the mon map. So we are going to be running the ceph command to remove this host as it was known before, and we just named it back the same. We're going to remove that from the mon map so that we can add this as a monitor through croit. We need a disk to run the monitor, and this was the former OS disk. So we're going to reuse this for the MON. And we are going to set to MON. We have the IP address configured, that is correct. And we will wait for this to create. That is done. Now this also, we want to set up an MDS service on this. And if there were any other services, like RGW that were running on this node before, we would recreate that now. In this case, I only had MONs, a MON, and the MDS service running. All right. So at this point, I'm going to reboot. Now that we have everything configured, and give it just a few moments to come back up, and then we will move on to the same steps for the second node. And we are running, so we can do the same steps on the second node. So I am going to power off the second node, make the BIOS config changes that I need to so that I don't boot off of the OS disk. All right, and we see that it is coming in. So we can go ahead and rename this. All right, and the NICs, it's still booting up, but the NICs are showing properly, so I'm going to go ahead and configure. All right. Now we want to remove it was a monitor as well, so we want to remove it from the old reference from the MON maps. And we want to repeat the same process. Wipe the old OS drive. Set to MON. And while that's creating, I am going to go ahead and make this another MDS server. And again, if I had any other services that I needed to recreate, we could easily do that here in the GUI. Now I am going to reboot this node. And it's booting. And it's running. So for the last node, I'm going to do the same process. Shut down, make sure that my BIOS boot order is set to boot off of the NICs. We see it starting to come up. Let me go ahead and fix its name. We see the NICs, so we can edit. And we need just a few more moments before we see the disks. But it does look like our IP change took. Alright, there, the disks are ready. creating our third and final MON. Whoop, and I got an error because I forgot an important step. Need to make sure that we remove it from the MON map before we try to re-add it with the same name. Oh, and I already did that here. So let's try that again. And for extra measure, we'll just make sure. Yep, it is out. And let's create that MON now. That's looking better. And in general, we prefer to have active, standby replay, and standby MDS services. So that should take care of that. For the sake of time, let's go ahead and take a look at our status page. So we can see that everything looks pretty good. We are still in the process of creating our third MDS server, which just completed. So we are 3 out of 3. We have all of our original OSDs. We have 3 MONs out of 3 servers that we started with. And the cluster is healthy. So that is it at a high level, and in showing you a walkthrough of a cephadm deployed environment. Thank you for watching.